perished. Thank you. Pledge of the flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Here.
Jeremy.
Here.
Wozniacki.
Here.
McNutt.
Here.
Pedro.
Here.
Newman.
Here.
O'Brien.
Here.
We've got a couple additions to business. First of all, under correspondence, we had a market update from RealComp. We had an email from Mr. Renwick. And we just received prior to the meeting, but it was before, it was after business, I guess, by the time we received it, an email from Ms. Ayers, so that we can probably throw that on next month's, I guess. But with that, then we have a couple items as far as under presentations. Under B2, under Wolverine Lake Drive in Penny Lake Kitchen Closer, we have item 2 for landscaping. And as far as Claire Miller Sports Court repairs, item 2, the Goddard update for expenses, or quote, I guess, right?
And some additional services. That's correct.
And I believe that's it, isn't it?
That's all I have, thank you.
Okay. So a motion to approve the agenda
Motion.
as amended.
As amended.
Motion by Duff,
Second.
second by Newman. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. As far as, we did have, under correspondence and information, we have a representative from Oakland Community Health Network here tonight. If we wanted to approve a resolution regarding September is mental health month. So if anybody wants to.
I'll make a motion to that.
Second. Motion by Duff, second by Jeremini. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You have anything you want to say, or?
I'm really just, if you guys have any questions about the co-responder, position, that's kind of
Okay.
here, so if you're welcome to ask.
Okay, that'll be later on the agenda.
Okay.
Correct.
So, perfect. Other than that, correspondence,
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
motion by Duff, second by O'Brien to receive and file correspondence. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. First call to public, opportunity for citizens to address council on agenda items only. Anybody want to speak to agenda items? Seeing none, we'll bypass the first call. Mr. Renwick?
I'd like to know what happened to the correspondence, and the minutes may be changed.
Well, we're going to get to, I guess we're going to get to the minutes, right?
There.
So where are they?
Oh, that's
That's the next-
AA,
that's the
we're on
next
number
one.
7 right now.
Yep,
Okay, fantastic.
yep. Okay. I bypassed this first call, and now we're on the consent agenda. So this is where the minutes would be discussed. Anybody have any?
I'd like to pull the minutes to make the changes as Mr. Renwick requested. I think it's pretty obvious to all of us that he would never say that it was the village policy to over-collect money. And so, as he requests to change that to not over-collect money, would be, that would be line 8 of his, page 2, where it says, he stated it's the village's job to balance the books, and it says over-collect money, but he or said not over-collect money.
And I agree, that's correct. That was a motion, is that all for minutes then?
And then I would also see that we change the minutes to better reflect his statement in the second call to the public, page 9. That would be, pardon me, the last sentence where he specifically does, he reads from the council minutes of that meeting, which do not mention the kiss my ass outburst. And said he questioned the minutes accuracy at the time and denied a correction. Replacing, he just, or it simply says he read council minutes from the past.
So what do you want the minutes to reflect to say then?
He read from council's minutes of that meeting, the 2012 meeting, in which do not mention the kiss my ass outburst, and stated he questioned the minutes accuracy at that time and was denied a correction.
Okay, it's a motion by Jimmy, I believe. Your second?
A second. Second.
Second by Mr. McNutt. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, anything else as far as the consent agenda? Need a motion to proceed,
Second.
to approve the rest of the consent agenda. So it's a motion by Duff, second by Jeremy. Any discussion on that? Roll call vote, please.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Chesnecki?
Yes.
McNutt?
Yes.
Medrow?
Yes.
Sherman?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
Duff?
Okay, board appointments. Recommendation from the Water Management Board to appoint Jerry Schlaff to the board, term expiring December 31st of 2026.
Second.
Motion by Duff, second by Newman. Any discussion? Let's do a roll call.
Chesnecki?
Yes, is he here by any chance?
No, he's not. He stopped in at the village hall today. He's aware that he'll need to be sworn in before the next meeting,
Okay.
the Water Management Board meeting next week.
Okay.
But he
Yes.
is not here tonight. no.
Yes. Yeah.
McNutt?
Yes.
Medrow?
Yes.
Sherman?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Okay, on the presentations, got a representative from Priority Waste here. Thank you for showing up. Dan?
Just by way of background for council, when we had our initial meeting with Dan and also with Brett Quidicott, who's the municipal relations manager for Priority, I'd indicated to them that at some point I would like to have a representative from Priority come in and speak to council so they can put a name with a face and answer any questions that council might have about the assignment of the contract from GFL to Priority and what was going on with Priority. So I hoped to get somebody here last month. It didn't work out, but Dan is able to be here tonight. He was in Commerce last night. It sounds like he's making the rounds of the communities, but we appreciate him being here tonight. So,
Absolutely. I guess is there, anybody have any questions?
I'll start off. So, welcome. Thank you. Obviously, we all know there's been some concerns around the area too, so what have you guys done as Priority Waste to address these concerns and improve you guys to bring your service up to a level that, the residents are expecting?
I'll tell a little bit of a story that'll kind of tell the timeline of where we were, where we are, and where we're going, so that everybody kind of knows. And we met in the village office and kind of talked about what Priority's expectations of ourselves is, and what we've experienced and your residents have experienced is not that standard of ourselves. A lot of it happened July 1st when we did take over possession of the vehicles, and that's been mentioned in many news articles of the condition of the vehicles in which we received them was not in the condition in which we audited them back in the beginning, middle part of April when we finished that. And so from the time in which we finished the audit to July 1st, when we received the equipment, normal scheduled maintenance was not being done. Overhaul work that needed to be done was not being done. And when we took the possession at different yards, because GFL did maintain some work in this region, the assets that were moved around were delivered without axles at one point. So 75 trucks were missing axles. As you tow a vehicle, you drop the axle so it doesn't burn out the drivetrain. I'm not a mechanic. I asked my mechanics and told me why that was, and that's what the reasoning was. So on day one of the 500 and so trucks that we were supposed to take possession, 230 were not deemed safe to operate. And our position was, what decisions do we make? Do we put somebody in an asset that's not safe, that puts them at risk? Or do we all have to suffer through what we call as the longest year of our life, the month of July, and get them right so that they can be safe? And ultimately, our CEO had to make that very tough decision to shut down some trucks, ship them out to 5 different states to get the work that they needed done, so that our employees could be safe and return to their families. So that was our biggest struggle throughout the month of July. We had the people, we just didn't have a lot of the trucks to go in. So there was a lot of shuffling around. There was a lot of, okay, you finish this area, move on to the next one, move on to the next one, and at the end collapsed to where we had the shortest allocation of vehicles. Surrounding communities, Commerce Township, as the village manager or administrator just acknowledged, I was there last night to kind of talk to the same thing. So that was the month of July. In August, by the time we hit August 1st, we had received up to 130 of those trucks back. So if we look at the big picture, we moved mountains in 31 days to get that many trucks back from it. But as you know, or may not know, it's a net score. Trucks go down every day. There are issues with trucks every day. Could be as simple as a regen where the truck needs to be shut off, cooled down, and start back up, and it's no big deal, or larger, more significant issues where we have to shut it down for multiple hours. So we fought that through the month of August. So as we're getting the trucks in, maybe their maintenance wasn't as upheld as it should have been, and we had to work through that. Now into September, now we're only, out of the 3 main yards that we've acquired or taken and utilized for the growth, we're only running roughly 20 routes shy a day. Now again, go back to July 1st, we're running 130 to 175, depending on the balance, a day shy. So we're in a much better position as we're entering the 80th or so day into this assignment, but knowing yourselves, your residents, our expectations has not been met to what our standards should be and what you should expect to see. So priority over the next 30 or so days, the cameras should be implemented in all the trucks that we acquired. We've made steady process through the installation. You can only do that when trucks are down and stable, right? So we don't want to not service to put cameras on. That kind of doesn't help either side. So the camera should be installed in the next 30 days on all of our vehicles. What that allows us to do is to fully implement our way of operating. And our way of operating is using digital means to track service as it's being performed. So we can watch live and pull recorded video of 360 degrees of the truck. So front, rear, and both sides, we can see everything as it's approaching, leaving, and as it's occurring, as well as watch materials as they're falling in. The next wave of our implementation of technology is to implement AI component cameras to identify the fuels and liquid paints and the oils that potentially possibly get put into a resident's can. That way it can identify and stop the compactor before it crushes, causing to a fire in those vehicles. And it's just, our mentality is the waste industry in the 2019 when we entered the market was still operating from like the 1980s standpoint of guys and gals in trucks with another guy or gal in a truck following that truck to make sure that that truck's doing its work. And that's really a very inefficient way to operate. As you know, with the technology that's available, it was more or less, at the time, we were a canoe in the ocean, or Wolverine Lake, as a bigger boat can't maneuver as quickly. The larger corporations can't implement those camera systems in. It would cost them hundreds of millions, where it just cost us a couple million to start this. And then as soon as it becomes a standard, now it's just coming on every truck as we receive them. We ordered additional trucks because we also know that, again, some of the repairs can't be done. Some of them need to just be put out of their service life, scrapping the vehicle. And that's the next wave of cleaning out some of the bad that we acquired. And we knew 60 to 75 of those vehicles that we took in were going to be that. And that was a plan where, again, if you look at 500, 60 to 70 across 5 service days, an average balance of 390 to 420 routes per day, we had a healthy number that we said, okay, we maybe don't have a ton of spares, but we have what we should have to service the communities. But again, going back, we didn't have 200. So we're in a much more stable position today as we were, as compared to even August 1st, but still more room to grow. I know that we've talked a couple of times, and you've talked with Brett a couple of times about the service, and we are committed to getting this right. And not as meant to make anybody laugh, but my last good night of sleep was June 30th, because that was the last night where all of my communities were fully serviced, complete with very minimal issues. At that time, we were operating at a 99.98 collection rate, which means that we were only getting 0.02% calls in for missed services. And that's again because we utilize that technology. The guy in the truck following the truck can only see what he can see. He can't see everything. And that technology component coming in over the next 30 days will really improve your service experience. It'll allow us to educate a resident should there be a mistake on their side, and also be transparent with the resident if it's our fault. And then we can use that to coach up the employees that we have of what we saw and how we fix. Because again, we put procedures in to not make the same mistake twice. But again, we don't have the capability at the current moment to check everything because the cameras are not installed in all of those vehicles. So hopefully that answers your question, a little bit long-winded.
Well, thank you very much.
Mhm. Anybody else? Oh, sure.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just wondering if those cameras were real-time, so you're actually watching what's happening in real time? That would mean you'd have like 300 TV screens in a room somewhere and 300 people watching each one of them. And I didn't know if they're real-time or if they're just stored in the cloud or on a hard drive in the truck.
Good question. They are, we're able to watch real-time video. We, the logistic driver coordinator is the person that's in the office in our Clinton Township corporate. We call it the PIT Command Center, Priority Integrated Technology Command Center. The LDC, logistic driver coordinator, has a grouping of communities that they watch. And they watch, let's say, 10 to 15 trucks a day as they're operating. Now, we don't need to watch every truck every second that it's running, but we do spot checks. We also have a safety component where an individual not watching service is just watching the driving habits of the driver, watching how fast they're accelerating and how fast they're slowing down, checking their residential speeds, because we get blamed a lot, or in our industry really gets blamed a lot for your truck was going 40 miles an hour down the street, when really it's just a very loud truck that accelerates hard because it's heavy. And we can see that if they ever exceeded a certain speed limit, if they're slamming on the brakes too fast, because in that analysis, we can talk to the driver about their driving habits to avoid what we talked about before, the maintenance side of the trucks. If they're accelerating quickly and decelerating quickly, that's only going to wear the truck out. So the LDC will be able to watch every truck that they're monitoring in real time, watch the paths in which they're going, make sure they're hitting both sides of the street in both directions, and confirming services in those maybe unique spots over by waterways and dead-end streets. And then up to 7 days, pull any recorded incidents as we get reported. So if something comes into the village's office or comes direct to us, we can pull that video, confirm the service was completed, as well as talk to a resident, educate them, bless you, if there was something that they need to know. Because previously, the cameras I know on the GFL trucks only had a front-facing camera in some and a cab-facing camera for driver safety purposes and insurance. So having the full coverage of the truck helps all of us as we look to grow and get better. And as technology becomes available on the Hopper camera, that AI component that I talked about, it can identify contaminated recycling. So we can divert materials from going to landfill by potentially using data that we collect in our system to say, hey, this pocket of Wolverine Lake is struggling with contaminated material recycling. Maybe we do a targeted education campaign to show them this is what you're doing and this is what you should be. And that's another thing that we're working with the Herb Institute on, and how we implement those types of technologies with the University of Michigan. The other component of the AI that will come in the following wave, and these are these are goals that we're looking for, that we feel confident that are gonna happen, otherwise I wouldn't be saying it, is an AI camera that can check and see if we miss a stop, it'll tell the driver they missed it. So if it is reading down the road that it didn't pick up a bag that it identifies on the curb, or a can that was at the curb, it'll alert the driver in real time or soon thereafter, hey, remember you missed this, as like almost like a ping. So it'll help the human element of mistakes. That way, we're only looking for ways to improve. What helps us is efficient and proper service. What helps you is efficient and proper service. So that's our way of doing it.
So I guess I had a question as far as, you mentioned, I believe you started 2019?
Mhm.
So how many communities did you just take over back in July 1st?
We had 43 in our service roster at the time of transition. We started in residential service in 2019, the business in 2018, not much of a difference. But in July 1st, we took over 73 additional, so 140-something% more.
That's a lot.
And, you know, the transition, I know that there were some issues with the way that GFL did not alert the communities. We obviously could not go out and tell people. We found out about a week before the announcement, and when the announcement came out, which was also improper, it was a letter to employees that could post online, and it spread like wildfire as it naturally does. We weren't able to make some proactive calls. We were at the behest of GFL to let us know, which is when Don reached out to the village administrator to schedule a meeting for us to talk about things. And that was the process that they wanted to happen. So we did take on a lot, but it's not our first acquisition. It's just one of the largest in the state.
So are you Michigan-based then?
Correct. Clinton Township, we're at Hall Road and Romeo Blank.
Okay. I know you have a depot up in Saginaw area.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, we have that big sign on the.
Anything out of state yet?
Yeah, we have 2 communities in Indiana that we service. We started in Indiana in February of 23. No, yeah, 23. And we got our first municipal contract in March. That was an interesting bid. 9 days from award to start, so that was a long time. Then we got our second one that started in December. So we have 2 with a third that'll start at the end of this year.
Interesting.
In terms of customer complaints and things like that, I'm guessing it was pretty significant in July and August. I know some of our residents were frustrated with the responses they received from representatives of Priority. Has there been anything done on Priority side to work with their staff to be more receptive and responsive to customer concerns?
Thank you for that question. That's, for us, the customer, we view ourselves as an extension of your office and the extension of the village. And the experience that your residents should feel from us is nothing but positive, understanding, empathy, and provide them with a resolution. In July, especially, communities, maybe this one, but definitely others, had more significant problems leading up to the transition. Waterford, Commerce Township, even Rochester Hills, and neighboring communities were days, if not weeks, behind on certain materials. We walked in day one, July 1st, our phones lit up like a Christmas tree. I mean, first 3 hours, now, 43 communities before, on a daily average, we were getting 400 to 500 calls. And that's total. That could be across our front load division, our roll-off division, and our residential. Day one, we got 3,000 the first 2 hours. And that's a very tough thing to overcome. And what I'll tell you is at that point, the amount of calls fried our phone system. And that caused significant delays in answer times. So, I mean, I know it's no secret that it was hard for people to get in touch with us, and it literally fried our phone system. We had to diagnose it over the first week, and we found out that just before the 4th, on the 3rd, that we found out what had happened on the backside. The next week, we engaged with the national phone provider, AWS, Amazon Web Services, to take over our phone system. They were able to, in the 3rd week of July, implement some patchwork on the current phone system. but they can only do so much on a system that's not theirs. So they implemented some patchwork on that phone system. At that point, we scheduled more meetings, and we have a transition on the 18th or so of this month to have their first wave of their phones come in. That doesn't talk to the personnel element, but that's just the IT side. Our people were inundated with calls, elevated emotions. I think that sometimes they may have let it get to the best of them, and for that I apologize. We have talked with them about keeping their composure, their professionalism in that environment, but we are all humans, and if they're getting yelled at 12 times in a row and they get one finally nice person, maybe it could have carried over. That's no excuse, that's just a reality. We've talked with them. The experiences now are much better. We've added staff to that position to appease and alleviate some of the pressure that they were having. Nowadays, their lives are a lot better. Our call volumes are less than 3,000, less than 5,000 a week, as opposed to in a couple of hours. So that is helping things, but we're still, always working on that. So with the phone system that we have and the next one that's coming in, we record all calls so we can read, or so we can listen into the conversation. Sometimes maybe it was the way that the message was interpreted from our team, and sometimes it was our team responded incorrectly. But as we've grown and gotten a little bit more acquainted with your service, as well as the other neighboring communities, we can answer things quicker, we can provide better feedback, and I think that the experience overall is definitely improving.
Anybody else? Go for it.
Thank you. Dan, a couple of questions, and I think one of them you probably already answered, or at least in part answered, but for everybody's benefit, one thing that we're doing differently with priority than we did with GFL was, if there is a resident that has refuse or yard waste or recycling that isn't picked up, the GFL, they would call our office, and then we would contact the area supervisor, who would make arrangements to have the missing pickup picked up. One thing that you have asked for, that the priority is what we're doing, although we're logging calls and complaints when they come into the village hall, we are also asking the residents to contact you directly. Can you explain to me why it is that you're taking that approach?
It is faster for us to act that way than if it's transposed from your office or somewhere else, because there could be some context that is not illicitly explained to you that we can ask more in a roundabout way to get greater detail. Is it trash mixed, missed? Great, but is that bulk or a cart type of situation? Because it may require a different style of truck. We can also, again, with the camera systems and the technology, route the closest vehicle back, as opposed to sending it to a supervisor who's trying to find the closest truck who may not know, or just assuming he or she knows where that truck is. So it benefits us and the resident to allow us to act a little bit faster. That's the goal. And again, it's right now a little bit of a broken process because it requires some of the additional, but we didn't want to come in and train the residents to do one thing first week, first month, second month, and then third, fourth month, try and break them of that habit, because it takes a while to do so.
Second question is just for everybody's information. We've had Monday pickup before, we still have Monday pickup now. I know some communities, they're having their pickup days changed. Anything in the cards for the village, or as far as you know, are we going to continue to be a Monday pickup?
You're going to continue on Monday. You're talking to Commerce Township, which I was there last night. They were a 4-day service with a significant imbalance on Tuesday. They were 15 routes on Tuesday, and then 9, 9, and 9 on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And we look at it as we want to just have everything be level. But for the single-day communities outside of certain sizes, there's Richmond Township that is 1 day, but they're a 15-truck route day on Friday. We're moving them to a 5-day schedule as well, or actually we just recently did. So to alleviate some of the imbalance of routes. What we in the industry don't want is to have 390 routes needed on Monday, 420 routes on Tuesday, 400 routes on Wednesday, 430, because then we don't, Now we're having to park assets a certain amount more for those extreme days, and then which alleviates spares for the lighter days. So we want to just have as close to the same in the number of routes each day. So yes, that's why we're doing it to some communities, but not for Wolverine Lake.
And then the other thing was just a general comment, I guess more for council's benefit than anything else, but there are a couple of calls that have come into the village hall that were of a nature that I wasn't comfortable just referring the resident to Priority, that I felt that I needed to reach out directly. And when I reached out to Dan, he's always been very accessible, he's been very responsive. I've appreciated that, and he's always addressed the problems too. So I appreciate that, Dan. Thank you.
You're welcome. The text that you sent me on Friday, I was actually in Chicago. I have a baby on the way, and we had the gender reveal the next night. But that's our priority difference. And I'm not saying that it's not, because you had Don Beretta, I believe, before that you worked with GFL, and Don is with us. He's of the same cloth or fabric that we are, where he doesn't not answer his phone, and that's who we are. We understand that there are going to be cases that need an elevation of access. We also understand that some things are more delicate that need to be addressed immediately, and that's who we are. So our phones are on, Brett's as well as mine, if there's ever anything that you need.
And just for those of you on council that don't know, for the corn roast on Saturday, Priority provided a dumpster for us for the corn roast. And the dumpster was dropped on Friday in probably the worst spot it could have been
It was
dropped,
the worst possible.
blocking access where all the vehicles get back to the area where the corn roast was. So we reached out on Friday, and finally it took a couple phone calls, but Dan got involved on Friday night, and Saturday morning the issue was taken care of. So.
Just curious, just one other question, I guess. How many people were you able to retain from GFL? I mean, 150% increase is a lot of people in our organization.
So I don't know the actual hard numbers, I just know roundabouts. We were giving access to about 800 to come over to us. In that initial list, we reviewed it for any, I would say, familiar names, for any of those that we maybe didn't want to extend the welcome to. Primarily, maybe they worked for us. They had issues with us, and we had maybe terminated them for cause. And so at that point in the time frame in which we could reach out, we did so. Some ended up leaving, whether it be the industry or went to another company, because normally it's uncomfortable not knowing what's going to happen on the other side. So there were a few that left the industry or went somewhere else. But of the 800 or so, we took on about 700. So it wasn't a significant number difference.
Good, well, that helps. It's definitely hard to get people right now.
It is.
Anybody else? Well, we certainly appreciate your presence here tonight, and thanks for answering all the questions, and
Yeah,
thanks for
thank
giving
you.
us all the information.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Okay. Very informative. Moving along, recommendations and updates from our engineer.
Good evening, council. The first item is the, not final pay request, because we have retained close to $30,000, but this is the second half of the recommendation for Phase 2, and that would be Wolverine Drive section of the paving. That's the final course. We still have a couple very small drainage issues that we're working with Hutch, and they're going to stand behind their project and their workmanship. We have proposed taking a 5% retention from the actual paving portion of their work. However, we ended up with an Avery Court base repair. When the asphalt pavement was milled up and placed back down, it was very interesting. The sand was so fine that their trucks were actually getting stuck. Their milling trucks were actually getting stuck in the sand that was underneath the pavement. I did not feel that that was adequate and proper to be able to put pavement back over top of it. And so we used millings. We took that fine sand out, and put the millings in there that we would have actually hauled to the BMX track. And so that was $11,000 actual time of labor and equipment to fix that base repair on Avery Court. We ended up having to remove pulverized millings on Wolverine Drive and a couple spots on the cul-de-sacs up on McIntosh. They, if we had to put all the millings back in, the pavement would have been 3-4 inches above everybody's driveway. So in order to make sure that we matched driveways, we took out millings, and that's the extra amount that needed to be removed from what they bid, and that's that $34,000 extra. I'm sorry, that's per the contract, and then the extra pulvering was $15,000 for the minor road, and then very similar to that in the major road, which was Wolverine Drive. Bottom line is, we're requesting that the final large payment to Hutch Paving be $327,992.42. That's everything except the retention amount for the Hutch Paving. And they, as I said, they still have some drainage repairs to do on their project.
Okay. Motion by Duff,
Second.
second by Mr. Aaron, for a total of $327,992.42
Correct.
with a 10% or 5%. Is that 10% or 5%?
5%.
5%, yeah.
The reason why I made it 5% instead of 10%, 10% would be normal if we were going to hold it for a couple months. But I'm looking to hold this through the winter. So as you know, we like to see how the pavement's going to hold through the winter. And 10% is a little more than what the standard operating procedure and MDOT typically allows. So I dropped it right down to 5%, and we'll just hold that through the winter.
Okay, any other discussion on that? Roll call vote, please.
Oliver, I got just
Oh,
a couple of questions for you, Mike,
sorry. Oops, sorry.
regarding that, the extras. And on the other project, you're looking at a change order amount of one of $11,000 and one of $41,000? So between the two, that's looking at over $100,000 in extras? Is that, I mean, if
It's not quite right. You ended up with the Avery Court repair. That is
Yeah.
an extra.
Yep.
The excess millings, which is the 15,000.
Correct.
On that top one.
What I'm talking about is the next one where the requested change order amount, you have two of those coming up, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And those were actual changes during the process that had to be done because of the excess. It was excess material and conditions that we didn't know existed because of the thickness of the pavement. We did not go around and core every 100 feet all the way down the roads, and so when we ended up with greater than 4 inches of pavement, that took more time for them to grind up, mill, and haul away. So, yes, there were approved extras and then unknown quantities.
Okay. So I guess how often do you guys core? I mean, how many feet? I mean,
Quite
a
frankly,
project like this?
we've learned that we do not core. The core is only good for the area 5 feet around where the core is. And so I studied this over the years, and other engineers will core every 50 feet, all the way down and around, so it costs $10,000 to core. And instead, we just keep track as it's being milled. In this particular case, the extra coring surprised us in just key areas. It wasn't wholesale over the whole project, so we would have probably found maybe a fifth of the areas that had more pavement. But I've never felt that testing corings, it's like soil borings. You pay a lot of money for not much information. And you would have saved anything. If if we had known ahead of time, then we would have included that in the base bid, and we would have been paying for it anyway. And so it was just a
Well, yeah,
savings.
absolutely, I mean, it's, would have
Yeah.
been part of the original bid, now it's.
Correct.
But added on, it might have changed our thoughts on the bid too, so.
Good point.
Okay. Anything else to mention up?
No, sir.
Okay, anything else? Let's do a roll call, please.
Pedro,
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Chesnaqui.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
The next item is one of our favorite projects, that we all grew old. There was another project in the village that lasted longer, and that was the groundwater contamination issue here around the village hall. If you remember, we lived with that for over 10 years, and never thought we could get rid of it. In this particular case, the administration has maintained council's position that the contractor has not been paid for their work, although they have in fact finished the piping for all the way from the Greenaway Drain to the intersection there at Penny Lake and Wolverine Drive. They still have some cleanup to do, and they have their equipment to get out of there, and they have debris that has to be moved. They were out there today, and so until they get their portion of the project done, the administration and I are not recommending payment to them. And they know that, and so it's kind of up to them as to when they're going to get paid. However, I did notify them earlier this week that we're now starting to get calls from people as to why their equipment's still out there, even though they're completed. And they intend on getting all that done this week. So maybe they need some money, maybe they just are tired of being out here as well. But I wanted to let council know that their part of the project is, their storm sewer is complete, now they just have some cleanup to do. As part of that, that was just an informational issue. As part of that, I wanted to let council know that the asphalt driveways have been repaired. Unfortunately, there are a couple areas where they need some additional repair, and the contractor is going to be out and repair those things in the next week and a half or so. Today, the concrete drives were repaired. They were all dug out, the concrete was put in. I was out and did the measurements and did the inspection to make sure they're 6 inches thick, which is what they're intended to be. It was put in precisely per spec, and so in 7 days, the people are excited. They're going to be able to drive on their driveways on new concrete, and so it's interesting. Some people want to make sure that even the final course looks the same as the rest of their driveway, and so we're trying to make sure that it matches their existing drive. That work will be coming to you next month. Let's see, in part of this, the H.D. Sarter has completed the repairs to the Wolverine Drive and the Adrian, all the asphalt driveways, and so we are recommending that we pay them for their actual work, but in this case, they're a little smaller projects, and so I'm recommending that we withhold 10% until we're sure that that asphalt is going to hold up and they come out and do their miscellaneous little repairs that they need to do that we found as well. So we're recommending a payment to H.G. Sarter in the amount of $17,093.16.
Motion to approve paying H.D. Sarter $17,093.16.
Motion by Duff,
Second.
second by O'Brien. Any discussion on that?
In regards to the ditch, the contractors removing everything, they're also gonna get rid of all the torn up driveway part pieces that have been
Concrete
sitting
and
there, that
stuff.
big old pile.
They are. I believe, if they're not totally gone today, they are mostly gone. I watched them remove 90% of it today. They had two fairly large piles. They had a pile right next to the Greenaway Drain, which was old corrugated metal pipe that they pulled out of the various sections. And then they had a huge pile of asphalt and concrete debris at the corner of Adrian or Armenia and Wolverine Drive.
That's
So they
still
were-
there.
It's still there tonight?
I drove down right before, as I got home from it.
I actually witnessed them removing some of that today.
There was a pile
So
of
it's
it
still a
out there,
pile there?
yeah.
Okay. So they'll have that finished this week as well. They got their big payloader there, and they're hauling that away as well.
You know, the DPW should be able to start cutting those ditches again that we said we would do once this project was done.
Actually, that's already been done.
Okay.
On the corner there at Wolverine Drive and Penny Lake. The owner did that in lieu of some little additional work the village did in connecting their piping to underneath their driveways. And so that's all been done. And when I get to the landscaping portion here, I'll go over some issues on the cleanup there on the ditch enclosure project.
Okay, anything else on Sargers portion? Okay, with that, roll call, please.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Duff.
Yep.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Kuznecki.
Yes.
McNutt.
Yes.
Renfro.
Yes. Now the landscaping.
Now, the landscaping, and I asked council not to quote any prices that are in front of you, and I'll tell you why. The contractor that we've used in the past many times in the village for landscaping, when he submitted his price, his quote, I felt it was a little high, and I just didn't want to approve it. He went back and reevaluated it and actually reduced his prices to the amount that you have in front of you. I just still felt that I was uneasy the amount of money that they were asking for. And so I've asked for another bid from another contractor, a very reputable contractor, and I have asked for that price, and I don't want the original price out in the public because I don't want to give the second contractor any advantage. However, at the same time, I don't recommend council we wait till next month because the prime growing season for the seed and mulch is now and in the first portion of the month of October. And therefore, David and I talked a little bit, we would recommend that council authorize a not to exceed amount, which is really not going to be any more than the quote that we have. But to not give away that quote, we're recommending that you allow the administration to, and myself to award the contract to no more than $10,000 for the work to be done. And that way, it's at least represented by council, but we can get that work getting started here next week instead of waiting till after your meeting next month. Kind of odd type recommendation, and we're here to answer any questions you might have, but that way, at least I'll feel a little better that we've got a second quote and we're not overspending the village's money on restoration for all that work along Wolverine Drive.
If I could just add or maybe pile on, Mike, if you're seeing some puzzled looks around the tables, I didn't provide you with copies
Ah, good.
of the.
For that reason.
The initial estimate, just for the reasons that Mike
Yes.
has talked about. So
Good.
we have that dollar figure in mind, as Mike has indicated. We're in the process of getting a second quote. We will award that bid to the lowest bidder. But in the interest of maintaining the fairness of the process, again, as Mike has said, we're just asking you to authorize a not to exceed 10,000. That'll cover the work, but again, we will award the contract to the lowest bidder once we have received all the bids.
Correct.
What will the scope of work be?
All the way from the Greenaway drain, removing 2, 3, 4 inches of existing, if you look down there, there's a lot of gravel and stones and everything. We want to remove all of that. We want to reshape the swales that are draining from the driveways down to the catch basins that have been placed along that road, bringing in at least 2 inches of clean topsoil. and then seeding and mulching that whole area. And it also includes the westerly corner of Penny Lake and Wolverine Drive. And it also includes the corner of Amenia and Wolverine Drive, where all that debris is that still has to be cleaned up. So it'll take care of that entire project now and all the debris from that project, and hopefully provide grass growing before it snows.
Motion to approve not to exceed $10,000 to allow the administrator and the village engineer to award a contract for the restoration work done on, or to be done on Penny Lake Drive.
Perfect. And here's a second. Motion by Duff, second by Jeremy, second by Kazmecki. Any discussion on that? Okay, roll call, please.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Kazmecki.
Yes.
Nutt.
Yes.
Medrow.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Alrighty.
Mike, just to clarify,
Yes.
that's also going to include some additional restoration work along Shankin?
Thank you.
Where we put the asphalt?
Yes, it
pathway.
does. It's actually a two-part process, and I've split it up into two parts because the budgeting is in two different sections. We have the ditch enclosure project along Wolverine Drive, and then we have the paving program, and so this is to do some additional landscaping along our new pathway along Shankin, up and around the corner, and then a little bit behind some new curbing that we, some swales that we put adjacent to the roadways. And so it's two different line items in the budget, but it's the same contractor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, roll call, I guess. Did we do it over?
We already did it.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Oh, gosh.
That's it.
It's been a long week already.
This next item, 2C, I believe, if I got my notes here correctly, is a very unique recommendation. As you know, council has authorized the sports courts to all be beautifully painted, and you've had pictures of them delivered to you. The quote from Goddard Paving, and I apologize, I don't have this right with me, you have it in your hands. The quote from Goddard Paving that council authorized last meeting, I didn't pick up the fact that their bid and the bid from the next lowest bidder was assuming that we had repaved all the courts. And if you recall, council, in my opinion, very wisely suggested that we, or approved that we not redo all the courts for cost, but just repair the cracks that were identified in the courts. I did not let the painting contractors know that we had still left some of the old asphalt in place. And just to make sure there were no glitches at all, I asked them to meet me out there last week to walk the projects. And they looked at it and said, yep, okay, all the cracks have been fixed. However, they noticed two things that were going to impact their project. First of all, they assumed that it was going to be all new pavement, and because it's not, they want to power wash. They're highly recommending that they power wash the existing old asphalt that's there. They want to make sure it's dust-free. And so their quote to power wash is the $4,500, and that's their minimum recommendation to be able to, as a matter of fact, they would actually withdraw their bid if they can't power wash, because they want to make sure they get good adherence to the existing asphalt that's there. So at the very least, they're asking for an addition of $4,500 to power wash all the courts. Now, that will allow them to add their three-tier process, their leveling, their kind of leveling course, their paint, and then their clear coat. But they wanted to make sure council knew, and quite frankly, that I knew as well, that the line work that you see out there now, the ribbons of the spots where the cracks were filled, would still be visible. They'll be painted, but the texture is going to be different enough to where you would actually see those lines in the paint. So it's like painting a rough coat of paint on a wall versus a smooth coat of paint on a wall. And the courts from 10,000 feet up would look great. It'd look just like the pictures. But down on the surface, you'd actually see a difference in texture between the existing asphalt that wasn't replaced and the new asphalt. So they recommended that another coat of acrylic resurfacer be put on to take up some of that different look, so it would kind of blend it a little bit more than it would be if they just did the 3-coat that they had bid. That's that $16,000, $16,650. Still be playable, but they wanted to make sure that council at least had the option of putting that additional layer of acrylic down. They said that will not make it totally uniform. There's no way to make the rough asphalt match the smooth asphalt in the corrected areas, but it would get it much more blended than it would be if we didn't apply that $16,500. Would it make any difference at all in the play? No. Tennis shoes, nobody would. It's not going to make a difference in play, but it would make it a little better look. The other option that they recommended is, if you've been out there, you see that there's maybe a 32nd of an inch, 16th of an inch of difference in elevation from where the cracks were repaired and the existing asphalt in all the courts. Again, that's not going to be an issue at all in playability or anything. But for $11,150, they will go through and hand trowel a smooth coat of acrylic patch that will blend the repaired portion of the pavement to the existing portion of the pavement, so you won't have any lip all the way around all those lines that you see on the court now. I certainly didn't know the pros and cons and the wish of council to make a recommendation. The administrator and I just wanted to present this to council. Certainly, at the very least, the $4,500, we really need to make sure that the existing asphalt is clean. If you recall, the cost to replace all those courts was $250,000. So this is a huge savings from doing that, but it is $4,500 more than what council authorized. The other two options, I'm certainly here to discuss it with you, and quite frankly, they said that they would be glad to come out and explain it to council as well and to the administrator as to the pros and cons of it. But I wanted to have an opportunity to present it to you tonight. The acrylic patch along the edges of all the repaired areas, and then the potential of the additional coat of the acrylic resurfacer over the entire court surface to try to smooth out the same texture on all the courts. They wanted me to make sure that I represented. You will still see the line work. You'll still see those repair areas, but it'll go a long way to blend it all together instead of it being a little more obvious. So I'm here to answer any questions.
Do you know, Mike, if we don't do that, would the areas that we don't have that extra in there, would it be more susceptible to quicker damage or something because it's not level?
No, it's a sealed line. It's right tight to the existing asphalt, and they actually put the same stuff in that we do on roadways between layers to make sure the asphalt adheres to itself all the way around. So that's not an issue. It's just a visual thing. it's not even, obviously, it's not even high enough to where a ball would make any difference if it hit right there, either in the hockey court, or the pickleball court, or the tennis court. But it is, if you go along, you can, and you scrape your foot against it, in any certain spots, you can actually feel that little lip that comes up on those repaired areas. I usually typically really respect council for your wisdom on this, and David and I both thought that we needed to present it to you guys and girls.
Like you mentioned, 32nd to a 16th of an inch variation. I know Mr. Gillum and I walked out there during the corn roast, and there's a couple areas that are close to an inch in variation. I don't know if Sarter can come back and try to,
Are we talking the extension areas around
No,
the
it's out-
court?
it was out in I think the hockey court, right?
Yeah.
An inch difference in elevation
A good
between?
half inch to a good 3/4 anyways. I know if I was on a rollerblade, it would definitely feel like a bump hit.
I apologize, I did not see that.
There's a.
Anything
just a
greater
couple
than,
areas,
anything
yeah.
greater than, quite frankly, an eighth of an inch, absolutely, I want him out here. We can't leave that.
There's probably a good, half a dozen areas?
There's more than one, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, good
Then
3
I
or
will,
4 areas.
I will have him come out before Goddard does anything.
Yeah.
Because I did not catch
I would
that.
suggest you take a real close look at it.
I will.
Because there's a couple areas I think that,
Well, that would not be acceptable. 1/8 inches is max.
yeah, well,
So-
it rolls down right where it needs.
Okay.
And probably maybe for a length of around 5 feet or so, wasn't it, Dave? 3 or 4 feet at least?
In a couple spots, yeah.
Yeah, just a couple spots.
Okay.
To that extent, but.
So it
I
should
did
be
not
tennis
pick that
courts
up.
and the basketball courts and everything else too.
I didn't look at the tennis courts, but I mean,
Well,
that was
those
during the
all
corn
should-
roast when I was walking back to
Yeah.
my car and noticed it, and
Every single repair should be walked then,
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
on all courts.
On all courts.
And there's a couple areas where there's a couple chunks missing out of it too that are, I don't know, maybe 1/4, 3/8, half inch deep.
That might fill in.
That might fill, yeah,
But
but I don't
you're
know how
right.
thick
But
you
I
can
need
put
to
that
walk
material on.
every square inch with the
Yeah.
H.E. Sarter then.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's a couple of the seams were just pretty thick.
Okay.
And if it was in like one of the walkways, it probably wouldn't be a big deal, near as much, but, I mean, I know there was a couple on the rollerblade, the hockey court, and, well, there was a couple on the basketball court also.
Okay. I did not catch those, so I apologize.
They're not easy to see, but,
Yeah.
Those are ankle twisters.
yeah,
The courts need to be level, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
period.
And I don't think we want to go ahead and go to this extent, put something on there and not have it ready to begin.
Absolutely correct.
So,
And that's not going to delay this issue with Goddard, because H.E. Sarter can get out and do this in the
I
next
don't know
couple
if they
weeks,
could
and
put
so.
a torch on it or try to.
Yeah, that's what they'll do. Yeah.
Smooth it out. They might have to take some material off on some of those areas too, so
Mhm.
please look at that.
Will do.
And then-
That being said, if council was, in the next go-around where we have H.E. Sarter with some tennis court, just remind me when we get to this that we won't want to, even if council authorizes it, we won't want to pay for him for this until
Right.
we actually get it correct.
And that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah,
also.
thank you.
So with that being said, I guess we got some
Decisions to make.
decisions to make regarding the balance of it, so.
Well, the Goddard quote, the 2 additional items, again, I'm recommending the 4,500 to clean the existing the old asphalt, but then I'm looking for council's opinion on the 2 additional cost items, the acrylic patch where it blends the edges of the
I would say
repair
we
areas
would be prudent to
down,
go ahead and do that also.
and then whether or not we want the second coat of acrylic resurfacer as well.
Was that what the first company,
The previous quote, the
Previous
other company,
quote,
the higher quote.
the higher
was-
cost
did
quote
have the
had,
second
I
one.
believe, had a
Mike
second
actually
coat in
mentioned
it,
that,
right?
it was on that
Yeah.
one.
Well, the second one had the higher, had the coats as well, but
Yeah, the 2 quotes.
the higher one, did it have the 2 coats of acrylic resurfacer in it?
I thought it
Yes.
did.
It did.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's- yeah, I mentioned that.
Yeah.
So I just got a question, when these projects are happening, Is it council's job, administrator's job to communicate what is being done in regards to complete recovering or just patching? I mean, because it sounds like there's a communication issue there, right?
Well, the bid went out to the painting company before we actually decided to only patch instead of redo all the courts. And I did not then send the revised direction to the painting companies.
Yeah.
And so it really caught me by surprise last week when I walked with them, and they said, oh, this isn't the way we like to do it. And they said, council needs to be aware of what additional work needs to be done, and I was not aware of that. So that was my bad, not
So it's
the
communication
administrators.
after the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, both of the quotes that we received originally were for coating new asphalt surfaces.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
So it's communication, after the fact that we decided to patch. So I was just wondering, is it our job, the administrator's job to talk to the contractor, or is
It's
it?
typically my job.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay. So we don't get that.
I missed it.
Do you remember what the difference was, Dave, between the,
Can't believe this, kid.
because I know there's a significant difference
It
between.
was
the two quotes.
55,000 to 70-some thousand.
75,000.
Yeah,
It's from the other bidder, yes.
So we're still,
it was 20,000 difference.
Well, and again,
That included
both quotes were for coating
New
new
asphalt,
surface,
yeah.
so it's logical to assume
Yeah, that
if
45.
there are
would be
additional
both.
expenses for
Mhm.
Goddard to be recoating the patch
Yep.
surface,
Right.
there would probably be additional expenses for the other contractor to coat patch
But the
surface.
previous-
well, I'm just saying if
The
the
previous quote, though, the other one, it had
two coats.
two coats.
Two coats.
Yeah,
Two
right,
coats.
so that,
Right.
if there was a $20,000 difference, we're looking at $16,650, so it still would have been about
Plus-
$4,000 cheaper.
Plus the 11.
No, because neither one of them would have had the patch,
That's correct.
acrylic patch in it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Apply 2 coats of textured acrylic resurfacer, apply 2 coats of acrylic color coat was the other company, and that was a $75,000 bid.
Right.
And then apply 2 coats of the acrylic color, but only 1 coat of the acrylic resurfacer.
Right.
Correct.
So,
So the second quote would be $16,650, according to this quote here, so we about $3,500 cheaper than the original quote, the first quote,
Than the
the higher
higher
cost,
quote.
right? Because it still would have had to, assuming that the other two costs would have been similar
Correct.
to the other company.
Well, and the other comment I would make too, that as we've gone through this process, everyone that I've spoken with, and I think Mike as well, when we've indicated that we were going to be having the courts coated, surface coated, they've asked who we were having do it. We indicated it was Goddard, and everyone has said across the board, they are the best. They are the ones to use. So if all things being equal, the prices were close, or even if Goddard was a little bit more, again, my recommendation would be to go with Goddard. So,
Mhm. Well, and looking more, what we are spending on it versus what we would have spent if we would have completely resurfaced it, we're still saving a lot of money, so I would say probably, my suggestion it would be to put our best foot forward on what we're trying to do here. So, that's my opinion.
I agree.
My one concern is, now that we have figured this out, that Goddard knows this, we've done the repairs, once it's all done, is it actually gonna be smooth? Is it gonna be level? Is it gonna be as playable as a new court would be? Or are we gonna have funky spots and things like that, that the ball bounces funny, or skate slips out funny, or things like that?
They've said that it will play, no one will notice the difference on how it plays. They said your eye will pick up still the lines that have the new pavement over it versus the old. If you look at the old pavement, the aggregate's actually exposed, so it's got bumps up and down. And they've been playing on that now for years. So Goddard says, no one will notice any difference in play, but your eye will in fact pick up the difference in texture.
The new texture will be consistent, though, over the new surface, so that you won't notice the difference between the new asphalt and the old asphalt.
No, you'll still
You'll-
notice
you'll-
the
you will
difference.
Not
notice
visibly, but physically, I mean, your feet won't.
Oh, your feet will never
Right,
notice any
because that's-
difference.
Like right
Yeah.
now, we've got folks trying to use the courts a little bit, and saying they're unplayable because, of course, there's two different textures, and the new asphalt's slippier, and things like that. And that we will be addressing that, of course, with this new surfacing. And-
Right. No, Goddard says that there will be no play difference at all, but your eye will pick up the difference.
Okay.
So the two extras, is that just aesthetics then? Is that what it sounds like?
Pretty much aesthetics, correct. Now, the other option, the applied acrylic patch, that will bridge the small
That's to take the
deviation
variations
between the
out.
two.
Mhm.
And that would,
And that's done before any other coats are done?
correct,
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
Mike, and I would guess that the acrylic patch is also gonna help the seams wear on the court over
It'll
time.
seal, yeah, it'll
It'll
seal
seal it
those
up, too.
cracks,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
I thought so too.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Comments, questions?
Just gotta make sure HD Stater gets out there and fixes the large inconsistencies.
Absolutely, that'll be my first call in the morning. I have another meeting with him in the village already, and so I'll just add this to it.
Yeah, so that extra coating fixes all the small imperfections that they go back over their work and
Right.
bring it within their tolerance, then
Right.
that surface should be wonderful. I mean, we're going this far in the project, you might as well make it nice, make it done right.
Okay, so, do we have consensus to go with all three items then? Is that what we're talking about?
Do we need all three? Do we need the second coat? We need the patch. We don't need the second coat.
That would be the power washing, the patching, and the second layer of
Well,
acrylic.
I think Mr. McNutt's questioning the second coat, I guess.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
the power washing the patch. The second coat, everybody said is aesthetics. I'm just questioning it. But will it change the longevity, the lifespan of it, the playability, and everything else?
They
the
say
second
not,
coat?
it would just be a visual issue.
Okay.
Well, it's cosmetics worth $16,000 for quartz. That's the question, right?
Yeah. Personally, I don't think so. Just for aesthetics. Right?
Yeah, and then the HD Stater goes out there and they fix all the highs and lows.
This,
Right.
just that.
And then that one extra patch will
Yeah.
make it all a nice, good playing field.
There
Everybody
you go.
happy and it'll
That's
look
the
proper.
difference.
As long as it says playable.
Mhm. Well,
To that of a new court.
my concern is not only playable, but is it going to have the longevity?
That's,
Yeah.
And that's the question, whether that
They
second
They
layer.
they still guarantee that the playability and the longevity is the same. That-
Between the first and second coat.
It's just a visual item, trying to match the two different surfaces.
I make a motion that we go ahead with the additional 4,500 and the additional 11,150 for a grand total of not to exceed $15,650.
A second.
Motion by Dove, second by
Sorry. But doesn't make any difference.
Mr. Newman? Okay. Any other discussion then? Okay, let's do a roll call, please.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Duff.
Yeah.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Wozniacki.
Yes.
McNutt.
yes.
Medrow.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
All right.
Next item, I believe, is the Clarendon Miller Park Sports Court repairs. This is for the tennis courts. Council approved the payment. Go ahead, I'm
I
sorry.
think we need to go back to the pay request for Sartor in the amount of $16,688.63.
Yeah, that's where we're at now.
That's where we're at right now. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the one that we could, council could approve, subject to the repairs being done prior to the Goddard coatings being put on, or quite frankly, wait until next month. they've done the vast majority of the work, and the tennis courts are being used again. I believe I think the tennis nets are back up, so they're being used. H.D. Sarter just invoiced for that $16,863. And we could wait until they do the repairs before the administration pays them, or we could hold on council taking this item up for H.D. Sarter for the repair of the tennis courts.
I'll make a motion that we table this till the job description is satisfactory.
Second.
It's all courts, not just tennis courts, right? Talking about
That's
the
all
repairs.
courts.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
There's a motion by Duff, second by Jeremy. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And last but not least, well, really, that's all we have is a cycle challenge area,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, this is just an update. The surveyor is meeting me out there next week to stake out the courts, stake out the track. Then we can have the earthwork contractors actually start pushing the materials around. This is a young lady that has a history here in the village, the surveyor, and so the first question she asked me is, since it's kind of my home village a little bit, are they looking for pro bono? And I said, no, you know what, we can probably pay the surveying fees for staking it out, because she's busy and she doesn't want to do pro bono work. Bottom line is, I wanted to get her out here as soon as possible. So we're looking to have it staked out next week, the meeting with the surveyor, and then I can have the contractor, who is Russo Excavating, have their dozer and their payloader out there to move the dirt around and to actually create the track. We also put the excess material from the playground that is under construction there at Claremore Park. We have all the extra material, including the sod and everything else, dropped out there, so we can backfill this court with that stuff instead of paying to have it hauled away somewhere else. So we're really ready to create this year, and I finally have a meeting with the surveyor next week. It's just an update for council's benefit. And if you have any questions on that, I probably can't answer it, but I'll try.
Timing roughly, what do you think? I mean, what, we're looking for completion date?
I have not cleared with Mark Russo when he can get his machines out there, but my goal is to have it done by the 1st of October so that we can get grass growing on the back slopes, the backfilling of the track itself is also.
Okay, good.
That's the goal.
Alrighty.
Before I forget, just we with the courts in the blacktop area, obviously we got to start coming in and do that work now, but what is the timeline on the fencing?
That's the next point of business for council, yes.
Yeah, I can respond as to that. Andy Stone checked with the vendor Novi Fencing today. They're expecting to have the new fencing delivered next Tuesday. They're planning to be on site, starting with the fence installation a week from today, next Wednesday.
Good deal. Any other questions for Mr. Powell?
Thank you, council.
Thank you, Mike.
Hey, what-
Continuing to move along. We have a public hearing for reprogramming of fiscal year 2023 CDBG funding. And this is the one where we're going to program for the doors, and then I don't know what the heck.
That was the last one.
That was the last one.
That was the last one. No, this is money that we had allocated for youth assistance, for Lakes Area Youth Assistance, to support their programs. And as it turns out, the information that the county needs in order to be able to submit for reimbursement from the federal government, that LAA doesn't keep that information about the people that participate in their programs. It's mostly demographic information. And LAA just I think there might have been a time that they kept that information, but they no longer do. So, again, it's a situation where if we're not going to be reimbursed for the expenditure we made, then the money that's been set aside for reimbursement, if it doesn't go in another direction, the federal money can reclaim it. So rather than lose half of our allocation for project year 2023, so that would be $3,500 potentially. The hearing is to determine whether or not the village should be reallocating that funding from public services, that is the services that the lay offers, to the county's single-unit residential housing rehabilitation program, which we have supported in the past, and which we are also supporting this year with our block grant funding.
So with that, I need a motion to open to the public.
Motion to open to the public.
To the public.
Second.
Motion by Duff, second by Newman. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are now open to the public for reprogramming of the CDBG funding for 2023. Anybody have any comments? Seeing none, motion to close. Motion by Duff,
Second.
second by Newman. Any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay. With that, moving on to approval of, well, reprogramming. We're going to reprogram that now officially, right?
Yeah, I presented council with a memorandum that includes the resolution that would approve the reprogramming if council approves. I'll get the documentation out to Oakland County by the end of the week. And we can
I might
move
be
the
done with it.
We can move the reprogramming forward. It's-
Motion to accept as presented.
Second.
Motion by Duff, second by Jeremini. Any discussion on that? Roll call, please.
Duff,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Chris Snipey,
Yeah.
McNutt,
Yes.
Dedrow,
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Thank you, council.
Okay, thank you. We're finally done with that one. Item B, approval interlocal agreement between the City of Wixom, Village of Wolverine Lake, Township of White Lake, City of Walled Lake, and Oakland Community Health Network for Mental Health COVID Response Team.
Okay, so I provided you, council members, with some information regarding this agreement. Just going to read some of the highlighted material just to kind of summarize for you. Our agency is presented with a significant opportunity to enhance our response to mental health and substance abuse issues through the new partnership with the Oakland County Health Network. This initiative aims to address the pressing mental health concerns facing not only our state and nation, but also our local community in the village of Wolverine Lake. In just the past month alone, we've been called to the same location 5 times, attempting to resolve issues that are beyond our long-term capacity. Since January 1st, we've responded to 51 calls related to mental health and substance abuse, all of which involve immediate danger to individuals. Our officers excel in de-escalating situations and managing scenes effectively. However, we recognize that we lack the resources and capacity to provide the necessary follow-up care for individuals with mental health and substance abuse issues. To address this gap, we have proposed a co-responder program, a collaborative effort with the Oakland County Health Network. Given that our agency alone does not field enough calls to justify a full-time dedicated mental health professional, we will partner with Wixom, White Lake, and Walled Lake Police Departments. Together, these 4 agencies have generated sufficient call volume to support the hiring of a dedicated co-responder who will serve all 4 jurisdictions. Wixom and the White Lake Council have already approved the agreement, and Walled Lake PD will be presented to their council next week. Funding for the first 3 years, with the potential for the 4th year, will be covered through various resources. This initial support will allow us to evaluate the program's effectiveness and its benefits for our communities. Tonight, we are joined by Hillary Nussbaum, one of the founders of the co-responder program. She brings a wealth of knowledge about the program's implementation and operational details. I am confident that she will be able to provide valuable insights and/or answer any questions you may have about this initiative. Questions?
Hello.
Hi.
Do you guys want a little bit of like an overview on the program, so you guys are like
Sure.
more aware of it?
Sure, that'd be
Okay.
wonderful.
So what I kind of passed out to you tonight is pretty much an overview of what our program looks like. We started back in August of 2021, so this has been ongoing for 3 years. We are now up to 11 police agencies, with the addition of you guys and, you know, the other 3, we say the other 3 Ws, you know, in order just to kind of keep things easy to go. But we'll have 15 agencies and then 9 co-responders. So we're rapidly growing. It's a great program. We've seen a lot of reduction in repeat callers for mental health services. We've seen a lot of additional opportunities and resources given to individuals in need in the moment. We respond with police officers. We are typically in our own car. It would be the same thing for these 4 communities. We would be in our own vehicle, so we're able to respond to those communities as calls come out. And we go to those scenes and provide people with resources. We help problem solve with police officers rather than taking them to an emergency room all the time, which tends to be what we do. And we find that a lot of times when people get dropped off at an emergency room, they're released 45 minutes later. We joke that by the time the officer gets back in the car, that person is released from the hospital and they just walk right past them. It's sad, but that is the true nature of kind of what's happening. So we try to really give additional resources and other opportunities for people to get what they need in real time. So you can see kind of our list of goals. Some of our benefits are increased access to behavioral health system, reduced use of jails. We know that our jails are full of individuals who have mental health needs, and the goal is to keep people out of jail. So that's one of our big goals, is that diversion. Reducing rates of involuntary hospitalizations and increased officer safety. We know that if our officers have to take people involuntarily, that increases officer safety issues. Our goal is to help reduce that, and actually we do have some outcome data that suggests that that is effective, and we have been able to reduce some of that. And then also reducing the amount of police time to those repeat callers. So our goal is, to be able to go out to those homes and help people get connected with resources that help them. So you can kind of see some of our numbers. Some of our data was collected from Auburn Hills, Bloomfield Township, Birmingham, the City of Rochester PD, Troy PD, and then the Oakland County Sheriff's Office. Those were our original 5 or 6 agencies that we started with. So it's a little bit about us. We're, like I said, we're rapidly growing. We have one car in Pontiac who's actually like a mental health vehicle, so she actually rides with an officer at all times, but mostly we are in our separate vehicle. We carry a police radio. We're scanning all 4 departments, and then we're able to respond when those calls come out. So a little bit about our program.
What kind of background do you guys have, social work?
Yep. So actually all of us right now are licensed master social workers. We are open to having LPCs as well, licensed professional counselors, but we make sure that everybody is fully licensed with masters.
So what's your typical response time? I mean, I'm sure you get calls all times a day.
Yeah, well, so my 4 agencies, I'm Auburn Hills, Bloomfield Township, Birmingham, and then the City of Rochester. It can vary. If I'm in Auburn Hills and I get a call in Birmingham, sometimes the response time is 20, 25 minutes. Our officers are really aware that if I'm far out and they get to the call and they clear the call before I get there, that can sometimes happen. But the other piece that I actually didn't talk about is we also get referrals from our officers. So if you guys get a call at 2 a.m. for a mental health emergency, officers fill out an electronic referral for us. We receive that referral, and within 48 hours, we're following up with that individual or family. So if we don't make it to a call, we'll still follow up with that individual or family. We have a lot of connections with our hospital liaison staff in hospitals, so if that person gets admitted to an emergency room, then we can follow up with our hospital liaison staff and make sure that they get connected, or they connect with that individual to make sure that they kind of have some kind of follow-up rather than just getting released back out into the community.
Good.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great way to go.
Motion to approve the interlocal agreement for mental health as presented.
Second.
As far as discussion goes, I think Mr. Gill wanted to hit something here.
In terms of the motion, I appreciate the motion, but I'm going to recommend a minor modification, if you could. Procedurally, because this is an agreement potentially between the village, Wixom, South Lyon, and White Lake, all 4 communities governing bodies are going to have to approve the agreement. as the chief indicated,
Is it-
South Lyon and Wixom.
Is it Walled Lake?
I'm sorry, Walled Lake.
Okay.
White Lake.
White Lake and Walled Lake, that's South.
Yep, that's South Lyon.
Okay.
Whatever you use.
Yes,
Yeah.
whatever.
Just look at a chief so when he says that.
I was looking at the chief and thinking about the old days. So, but the four Ws, all those communities are going to have, their governing bodies are going to have to approve the agreement. Wixom and White Lake have approved the agreement. It's in front of you tonight. As I understand, the agreement is scheduled to go in front of the Walled Lake Council later this month. Walled Lake's attorney has recommended some changes to the agreement. I don't expect that those changes are going to be a problem, but assuming that Walled Lake approves the agreement with those changes, and the agreement is going to have to go back to Wixom and White Lake to be approved again. So we haven't heard for sure whether or not everybody else is on board with the changes that Walled Lake has suggested. Again, I don't expect that will be a problem. So what, I talked about this with the chief, what we would ask is a resolution approving the agreement subject to final approval of the form of the agreement by the village attorney and the village administrator.
I'll amend my motion.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Duff, second by Jeremini. Any other discussion?
And this is a really great resource to have. And I know we've all heard the stories around the village this year and other communities, and having another resource like this to help people can make a really big difference.
Yep. Sounds like a great way to go.
It's a big resource at a low cost, really, for the village, so, yeah.
Is this something we'll be able to use our CDBG funds down the road for, or possibly?
Possibly. Who knows, maybe there'll be other grant funding that'll keep coming up, and maybe it'll never even make sense for the village. I don't know.
Yeah, just curious.
You know, one positive for us too is like, because of the call volumes, it's been kind of agreed upon by the agencies that should funding run out and eventually we have to pay for this out of our own budget, out of the general council, it's going to be divided by 30, 30, 30, and 10 because of call volume alone. So
Right.
that's a benefit to us, and he and the other chiefs have agreed that that's fair for everybody. So it's just one of the benefits that we have, obviously, for being a smaller community, but
Sure.
it helps us out, financially as well.
Absolutely. And this is gonna be something that's gonna be beneficial for your department also.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as a village.
And the people.
That's a good street.
And the people.
Okay, well, with that, I guess we'll do a roll call.
Jeremini?
Yes.
Visnati?
Yes.
Nutt?
Yes.
Medrow?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Beautification Committee recommends council release budgeted funds of up to $300 for purchase of bulbs and container Miracle Grow for fall planting.
Motion to release $1,800.
Second.
Motion by Newman, second by Duff. Any discussion on that? Let's do a roll call, I guess.
Visnati?
Yes.
McNutt?
Yes.
Medrow?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Jeremini?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Also, second item was to request council accept the resignation of Amanda Mogg.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Duff, second by Newman. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item D, second reading and adoption of ordinance 153A-2, which is our fishing without DNR license permit, which is going to be a civil infraction. We introduced that last month, and this is going to be an adoption, so.
Correct.
Anybody,
Motion to approve.
motion by Duff to approve the ordinance, adopt.
Second.
Second by who that? Mr. O'Brien. Any discussion?
No.
Let's do a roll call, what the heck?
McNutt?
Yes.
Medrow?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Jeremini?
Yes.
Visnati?
Yes.
Okay. Off to the 2024-2025 winter maintenance agreement with the road commission of Oakland County. We get this on a yearly basis, annual basis, I guess.
Correct.
So this is just our participation in the maintenance, road maintenance agreement.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second. Ooh. Give it to Jeremy this time. Motion by Duff, second by Jeremy. Any discussion on that? Let's do a roll call on that one too, please.
McNutt?
Yes.
Renfro?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Yes.
Chesnecki?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item F, Village Legal Services. Dave, you want to probably handle that one?
Actually, I'm gonna,
Pass it on to Jennifer.
I'll let Jennifer handle this one.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit previously about some changes in our firm, and that has prompted me to go work with a new firm, Atkinson Mead. They are a new firm, actually, they've been around for a very long time. They have a wide range of legal practice, but they do focus on municipal work as well. They actually represent Commerce Township. Hans Rentrop is the primary attorney there. They do handle prosecution as well for Commerce and a couple other communities. John Coomer is their prosecutor. But I, in my capacity representing the Village of Milford, Milford Township, Milford Police Department, and code enforcement for Milford Township, and then you, those communities are gonna go with me to Atkinson Need. I'm gonna continue representing them. Atkinson Need is gonna handle prosecution services for Milford and code enforcement for Milford Township. And so I'm requesting that you, Baker and Lowski is in existence still, but will be terminating as a firm, discontinuing as a firm. So asking that you continue your services with me, handling your general legal work. And I, have read the administrative committee report and the administrator's recommendation, and of course, we're offering at Atkinson Need to assist with prosecution services as well. So if you're interested in opening that to bids, to consider that. As I said, they do Commerce Township and are there on Tuesdays doing Commerce Township, which is your day of prosecution. So it does help with code enforcement also, because of the close relationship with planning and zoning work, code enforcement, prosecution. So I've been, as you know, working with my predecessors for, it'll be 25 years now, this month actually, doing Village of Wolverine Lake and my other communities. So you can't get rid of me. I know where all the bodies are buried. Literally. So I'm asking that I provided a resolution to Dave. We have to have a resolution and a code of ethics to transfer services.
And that resolution was at the table for all of you. And just to comment, and as I discussed with the administrative committee last month, I'm familiar with the firm that Jennifer is going to be associating with, Atkinson Need. Good firm. I don't know Mr. Coomer, but I know just about all the other attorneys at the firm, and it's a very good firm. I just think that at this time, if we're making a break in terms of our prosecution services, this would be a logical time for us to at least ask for bids. And I will specifically ask that firm to submit a bid. There are other firms that I will specifically ask to submit a bid. We'll also post a general advertisement. But we can see what kind of a response we get. And for some of the reasons that Jennifer indicated, it may very well make perfect sense for us to use Atkinson Need as our prosecutors, but I'd like to see, from the village's standpoint, what else is out there too. So.
And that makes sense. And what I didn't add is, one of the components to this is Leanne, my associate, who you're very familiar with. She wants to retire soon, and so I personally really don't have an interest in handling prosecution on a permanent basis myself, because the general work keeps me busy enough, and, you know, I let the younger folks handle the prosecution. I'm not nice enough to be in the court, so. So it makes sense that you're doing that, but, you know, if Leanne and I were sticking around, it might be more comfortable for you to stick with us, because she's been actually handling prosecution for a while now, and she does a good job at it, but she wants to retire. I'm thinking about letting her, but I don't want her to. We're getting there, I guess, eventually here.
Well, I think, as Administrator Gillum said, Administrative Committee looked at it last month, and Jennifer's done a fine job for the village, representing us and taking care of our legal affairs for a long time, and she does know a lot, so it makes sense for us to retain her as legal counsel on that front, and it makes, also makes sense to go out for bid on prosecution, given the transfer, you know, what's going on that way, so. That was what the Administrative Committee's recommendation was. I believe that.
Motion to approve the presented resolution and approve it.
Motion by Duff.
Second.
Second by Jeremini. Any discussion on that? Okay, let's do a roll call on that, please.
Pedro,
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Wozniacki.
Yeah.
Hickman.
Yes.
You can't get rid of that easy, can you?
Thank you.
Thank you. We are now with the second call to the public. Ooh. So I know there's probably going to be a couple who would like to speak, so please state your name, address, and limit it to 5 minutes, please.
Okay, good evening. Beth Ayers, 936 Union Street. Before I begin, I want to take a moment to acknowledge Officer Dennis's conduct on August 19th. His professionalism and respect are a credit to law enforcement, and for that I am sincerely thankful. Tonight, I must address something deeper, which is liberty and justice, and I'm so glad that you brought that up, Ms. Alowski. I'm one of the bodies that you speak of. You know, it's more than just a phrase we recite when we look at the flag. It's a vow we make to each other. It's a vow I take seriously. And I have to ask you, Mr. Gillum, Ms. Alowski, do you take it seriously? Justice for all? I grew up pledging allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. It was one of my earliest lessons in civics, a promise of liberty and justice and fairness for all. Every morning, with my hand over my heart, I committed to stand for those principles. And today, I stand here still committed to that promise. Justice is not just a word, it's a duty, one that must be fulfilled if our community is to thrive. As the song so elegantly puts it, this land is your land, and this land is my land. One of the most sacred rights of this country is the right to private property ownership. It is one of the founding principles of this nation. Yet that right was taken away from me. My property is private. It is not equivalent to a public parking lot, as Mr. Baker, the prosecutor, said it was. Nor did I and the Rankins have a Baylor-Bailey relationship over the fence. Okay. The corruption and abuse that I've endured, the psychological abuse, I'm glad you have a mental health worker now, the violations of my property rights as a property owner, the malicious prosecution that I had to endure, must be addressed. This isn't just about a boundary line or a fence. This is about something much bigger, the integrity of our community, the trust in our law enforcement, and the very foundation of justice. I ask you all, how can you pledge allegiance to justice and liberty when corruption is being allowed to flourish unchecked. I sent you all video clips this afternoon. I hope you have a chance to look at them. Of Mr. Rankin's son admitting that Mr. Rankin had been moving the fence on both my side of the property, the other side of the property, and the property behind him. I ask that that you look closely at what has happened here, and I ask that it be rectified. The misrepresentation of the private property law to the jury that convicted me of removing items that were on my property that Mr. Rankin and his wife put there. That was against the ordinance of this village. I'm here to ask you to take a moment and look at those videos that I sent you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Mr. Leavenworth.
4335 Shaky. There we go.
There we go.
9/11, folks. Unfortunately, one of the young men we lost from Michigan was one of my son's friends. His name was Ted Adderley, 22 years old, graduated from college, went down there to work with finance. Smart kid, played lacrosse with the kids. And a reminder, I'm going to ask all of you, you know where you were on 9/11? You didn't. You know where I was? In court. You know why I was in court? The damn chief, or at that time a sergeant, made a false police report on me. So that's a reminder for me. Every time it's 9/11. These guys took me in, they took my picture. Guess what happened? They went to the office and they were high-fiving each other coming in at Ellsworth. One of the employees in the office was so upset over that, she went into the office to complain or talk to the girls. I had a good relationship with the girls up there, so they kept me informed. But what is bothering me here is we have a clique in this council and organization. When you told me I had an agenda, I didn't have an agenda. All I did was go to the ZBA meeting because I got a letter from the village, somewhere was enlarging their home. Good thing I did. Because what he was going to do, they were going to deny it. One of the gals from ZBA says, why don't you put your addition right there? He said, well, that's my septic tank. Well, the proposal didn't realize he has to hook up to the sewers. Then I went to planning. I wanted to find out how much education our board members are learning. Because I'm highly the type of person, educate. Guess what I found out? I was talking to him about acreage. I have acreage, according to my deed. There's 8 homes. If you go on Google Earth, you'll see the properties, each one of those practically has a driveway that's all curved and so forth going back there. You know what they told me at planning? Well, it's the fire marshal that wants to see your house. But yet, when I was in the other board, they told me the police chief wants to see your house. Which it isn't. All you have to do is go south, Lower Straits Lake, and you'll see gates, and so forth, because he has an estate or acreage. I just retired. You lost a good citizen for volunteering. And now I'm going to spend all my time showing you how bad you're running the village. Do you know how much time, percentage of productivity you have on your weed harvester? Probably not. It's running at 35% productivity, where he actually is cutting grass. I've asked a League of Women to see if they would produce a person to come over here for our councilmen that are going to be running for re-election or election. They can run it. When I ran for council, we had to compete. And we had to tell them what we wanted to do to the village. Is that done still? I don't think so. See, the way I look at it is, if somebody does everything right and goes to the meetings and learn about how the government is supposed to run, that's about a year's worth of college education as far as I'm concerned. Because I learned a lot. Like, you gotta go to those municipal league meetings that they have. I will see you next month.
Next month. Okay, thank you, Mr. Claiborne. Mr. Renwick.
Dave Renwick, 685 Amenia. I'd like to up front thank, I'm going to booger up your name, I'm sorry, Mr. Giramani? Giramini, I'm sorry. And for taking care of the minutes. I appreciate that. And Mr. McNutt, I'd like to thank you for your comments last time, because they opened up something that I haven't seen in 12 years. So thank you both very much. And before I launch into my bit, I just want to say I remember when Jennifer Orlowski, we got two good Jennifers up there, but when Jennifer Orlowski was one of the younger folks working with Tom Connolly. And then and now she has been an asset to this village, so I would encourage you to keep her on. She's as good as they get. Now let's get all nasty. One of my, I'm big on quotes. One of my favorite quotes is, "The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have too little." That's been my bone of contention with the rubbish feed ever since it was implemented. It's not fair. It's not a fair feed to people who don't have a lot. No fee is fair to people who don't have a lot. But this one is soil thought. According to statistics, per person, 4.8 pounds of garbage goes out of a house a week. If you've got two people in a house, you've got around 10 pounds of garbage coming out. But if you've got 6 people in a house, you've got, 25, 30 pounds of garbage coming out. The trucks, my wife said to me, well, isn't it the same? They just pull up and they empty the can. No, sometimes they empty 4 cans. And when they take it to the dump, it's not just dumped in the dump. They're charged for that by weight and volume. So, yeah, it matters how many bedrooms, basically, are in a house. The worth of the house. The property tax was the fair way to do it. Making it a flat rate for everybody was not fair. And it was not given to us as a vote of the people. It was a take by council. council decided and that's another problem I've got. Council decided in one meeting to do this. And just tonight, in your minutes, you have the second reading of an ordinance. And that ordinance was not first and seconded. I just went back and read all the minutes. I hadn't done that in years, and it was not first and seconded. So, but, the MML says that the general fund should not be more than 5 to 20% of annual budgeted expenditures. When I was on council, the MML said you could, a village our size could go up to 25%. The sheet of paper I gave you shows by year since this trash fee was implemented, shows you what it was as an increase to our yearly tax. And how the undesignated general fund is the money that is collected over and above. The undesignated general fund has gone completely out of whack. The undesignated general fund should be 25%. It's gone as high as 107%. It's never gone below, well, 72 was the first year, but that was only 10 months. It's never gone below about 90% since this thing was implemented. And that ain't right. And that's the people's money. That's the people's money out there. And, oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Inwood.
But the over-collection of the garbage fees, that, the last line is something to look at. And I would like to know, where does that over-collection of the garbage fee go? Because it's a fee, not just regular village stuff, and it should go to what it's feed for.
Thank you. So topics for the September 25th work session. Motion for Bill by Duff.
Second.
Second by Jeremy Need. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Do we have pending business?
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you. Update from Chief Sobek.
I provided some statistics for you regarding the Marine Patrol statistical breakdown this year. I was talking with the Corderos, I was talking to President Midrow this past Saturday, and said, hey, let's have a discussion, or let's have a report. And so I went through the last minutes of last year and the council packets, and I didn't see anything, so I'm like, okay. Chief Ellsworth, Chief, how do I navigate through this? So it kind of gave me some advice on what you were possibly looking for. So you have some shifts, and like a shift, some hours. You have the statistical breakdown in front of you. I have Officer Grunwald here tonight for any discussion or any questions you may have regarding any issues or citations or anything else that you may have questions about. And so that is my only line of business this evening.
Okay, well, I know, Steve, you've come in the past.
Yes, I
Those
have.
words, had you here a couple times, and you've basically just given us a good update on kind of how the summer went and what you saw. And
I think it was a real successful summer. There were no boating accidents, there were no drownings, there were no arrests. I think the majority of the problem that I'm seeing and that I've seen over the years, this year maybe a little more so than others, is just a lot of problems with the fishermen. Not necessarily residents on the lake, but people coming in that are not residents here, launching their boats and high-speed boating before hours, not reading the sign down there, that they launch next to. And I think of the majority of the tickets that were written before 11 a.m. I would say a large majority of those. And this year, when stopping a lot of those fishermen, I did start asking the fishermen if they did have a fishing license, which in the state of Michigan, to fish without a fishing license is a misdemeanor. It is arrestable. And so I'm very happy that we are putting an ordinance in that is not, it's a civil infraction. And I think that will be useful, for the coming months. But a lot of these people that were ticketed were given the option that if they take voting safety and learn a lot of the laws of the state of Michigan and take that online voting course, that some of these tickets would be dismissed, depending on the violations. A lot of the violations, out of the tickets that were written, there was maybe 4 or 5 violations they could have been written for, and most of the time they were just written one civil infraction.
I know tickets are down, citations were down this year. I think you had like 107 or something like that last
Well,
year.
I know a couple years, actually, they had 34 citations from 2023.
Okay,
Now, during the-
2 years ago.
But I know during COVID, we were averaging around between 128 and 130 tickets. And again, I would say, I can't speak for the other officer, but I would say for me, the people that I pulled over, probably less than 20% were issued a citation. So a lot of the time it's education. But in some cases, in some instances, I feel a ticket was deserved. So again, a lot of it comes in the morning. Between the hours of 8 and 11, a little bit earlier than we normally work, and sometimes, which I've had contact with a few of you, with problems in the morning. A lot of time it's between 8 and 11 is what I see is the majority of the problems.
Yeah, or earlier even.
Or earlier.
So, Officer Grunwald, we had some discussion, like if you want to maybe increase the hours for these guys being out there and starting earlier, so to increase the budget, or if you want us to adjust the hours and start earlier, 7 o'clock and go till, we don't really want to come in off too early because
Yeah.
the daylight hours, the later hours, 7, 8 o'clock is when things are still pretty hopping. So we're open to the possibility of just adding more hours, adding more budget, or just adjusting the hours to being earlier. Because like you said, most of these violations are occurring between 8 and 11 a.m., and we're not getting out there sometimes till 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I
right
know
now.
primarily the hours that you guys work are primarily weekend hours too.
Correct. And I would say right now, we're on average probably working 10 hours a day. Now, sometimes, there's been many times, as you know, Mr. Nedrow, that I try to leave, and there's a high-speed boater, and the boat's put away, and you have to go back out. So a lot of times, it can snowball. But I would say on average, we work about 10 hours a day. And I think if it was increased to maybe 12 hours a day, it's not that much more for an officer. And I think that might be, beneficial to be in a little bit earlier and to still make sure the lake's shut down at, 7:30.
And sometimes even during the week, week evenings or
Well,
something, even.
And this
afternoons or
year,
evening.
We've discussed that as well, right?
we've talked that over, and I talked that over with Chief Sovek, and, this year, there were some hot days that the chief encouraged me to come out, and, a lot of people were not expecting us out during the week.
Right.
And there were a lot of violations during that as well. But, also, it depends on the weather. So
Yep.
we usually go through September, the month of September, if the weather permits, and I know this weekend it's going to be in the 80s again, and I think the following weekend it's going to be in the 80s, so there's probably only a couple more weeks of Marine Patrol for this year, unless it's unusually warm. I know in the past, Chief Ellsworth has had me work some weekends, and even in October, that were in the 80s. So I guess it just depends on, weather permitting. But I don't know if anybody else has any questions or comments.
I don't vote that often, but how do you know these people don't live in the village? Does the voter registration tell you that where their address is? Because they don't probably have a driver's license on them.
Well, everybody that is stopped, I can run the MC numbers.
Oh, MC numbers.
And I ask for a driver's license. So, you know, I do know where,
But does everybody have a driver's license on a boat?
I can still run a driver's license and get an ops number by a name and date of birth.
Oh,
So I
okay.
can find that out even if you don't have your driver's
I
license.
was just curious. yeah.
Yes.
He has access to the same computer system that we do as officers on the road.
Mhm.
But I mean, you don't have to have a driver's license to operate a boat.
No, you do not.
No, but you can always request it.
Yeah,
Most
well,
people
yeah, I
agree
mean,
with
most
you.
people have an ID on them, but I mean, a lot of people get in a boat, I mean, you just have your boat key.
No, and actually, you don't need a driver's license in the state of Michigan to operate a watercraft.
Yeah, well, I mean, how many people do you stop and ask them if they've taken a boat safety class and they admit they haven't?
Well, not everybody has to have it. It depends on your age.
You're right, no.
And it's different age for personal watercraft as
Right.
well. So it just depends.
There's been quite a few where you've had people that have not had that course though, and
Yes.
that were required to
Correct.
operate with
And
that.
anybody born after December 31st, 1978 in the state of Michigan, no matter how old you are, eventually will have to have a motor safety to operate a personal watercraft, a jet ski. So someday, if somebody's born in 1979, when they're 80 years old or 90 years old and they want to go out on a personal watercraft, they will have to have a motor safety. And anything you do on a personal watercraft in the state of Michigan is basically a misdemeanor. It's arrestable, so it's very
By
serious.
personal watercraft, you mean jet skis only?
Yes.
So you don't have to go through it for a boat after that
For
date?
boat, yes, up until about the age of 24, depending on your birthday. Yes. So if you're older than that, you don't have to have a boating safety to operate a boat. So if there's a 30-year-old or 32-year-old, legally, he does not have to have boating safety to operate that boat. He does have to understand the boating laws of Michigan
Yeah.
and follow those rules.
Yeah.
So Chief Sovek and I have also talked about doing maybe a couple more boating safety classes in the future. We usually offer 2 a year, but maybe even having a refresher course in the spring for everybody, not necessarily an 8-hour boating safety class, but just maybe an hour refresher here in the village to let people come by and ask questions or, update everybody, I guess, on some of the key factors that they need to know when they're operating a watercraft in the state of Michigan and on the waters of Wolverine Lake.
That's a great
Smart.
idea.
It's really sad
That's a
that
great
you have to have a driver's license to drive and go through driver's training, but there's no requirement for a boat. And
Some
that's-
states, Minnesota, where I grew up, Minnesota, you do have to have a valid driver's license to operate a boat, but not in the state of Michigan.
I mean, you can kill somebody in a boat just as easily. I mean, and 9 times out of 10, well, people, know there's no drinking and driving, but you get out on your boat, and the first thing they do is pop open a beer.
And you can, in the state of Michigan, you can have alcohol
Yeah.
and drive a boat as long as you're not over
Right.
the limit.
And I think probably majority of the tickets you probably wrote were people that were coming in from the launch site too.
Yes.
Non-resident boaters.
Yes, it's hard to be everywhere on the lake,
Yeah.
and, a lot of the residents are, complaining about within 100 feet of shore, being too close to shore when the boat's on plane, and that was a big factor in a lot of the tickets that we wrote as well.
I know there's
The speeding causing wake, most of those tickets are within 100 feet of shore.
I'm just out of curiosity, between you and the other officer, how many tickets did you write and how many did he write? Do you guys have any idea?
I'm not real,
Not sure.
I didn't see the breakdown, I just know what I write, and I know when Officer Juzik is here, He's also been with Oakland County Sheriff and Marine Patrol for 34 years. He does not know a lot of the residents like I know, because I've been here many years. So a lot of times, he might call me 7, 10 times during a shift and ask me questions or about certain individuals, or this is what's going on, and we talk a lot because I'm a little more familiar with things that are going on here, so we do have that discussion a lot.
Okay.
But as far as, you know, the different breakdown, I know he has a lot of stops as well, because I get a lot of phone calls, you know, when I'm not here on that as well.
Well, the only reason I'm saying is, as long as you guys' philosophies and observations are the same, you know, like consistency is what's needed, and I think you do a great job.
Steve is more of the enforcer guy, the hammer guy, and Dave is, Officer Julik is more of the educational guy. Now, Dave will probably make like anywhere between 6 to 10 stops on a good sunny day, and, you know, when the weather's not so good, maybe half as much, but Steve writes more of the majority of the citations, and Sergeant Morosco also wrote a couple of citations this year as well, so.
Okay. Should there be a continuity between the two? I mean, if something's enforceable, educational, it's
We're working on that.
Okay.
You know, and the other thing is this, a lot of it is officer discretion. So I will be honest, and a lot of people's attitude dictates what happens.
Sure.
But, you know, I've always had a great relationship with the 52-1 court in Novi, where they allow me to write a ticket, and I'm able to dismiss that ticket in court if they do their voter safety. And, you know, being a DNR instructor for voting safety and teaching the classes, I would rather educate these people so they're safe for themselves, their family, and everybody else around us. So a lot of the times, you know, it might be a little inconvenience for them to do many hours online for the class and then have to show up in court, you know, during the work week. But, you know, they have the choice to pay the ticket as well. I can't force them to take it. I like when they take the voting safety. But they have an option. And they have an option to educate themselves, or they have an option to pay the ticket. And a lot of the times the judge will ask them, did you learn something? And 99% of them were shocked at all the laws that they learned that they didn't know or they were unaware of.
Right. And I think it's fair with you, Steve, is that, you know, with the residents, you know, they get, and voters and stuff, they get comfortable and kind of familiar with things, right? And so having kind of a lack of continuity between the officers, it can throw one of your officers under the bus, because somebody else might say, yeah, you just go, I'll give you the warning, but it's an enforceable infraction, so the other officer out there,
Sure.
you know, kind of gets thrown under the bus. So that's kind of what I'm
Yes.
thinking, you know, instead of getting a resident that, you know, gets upset because somebody let me go versus you're doing this. Some continuity is important there.
But
It
Mike,
really
you know,
is.
the other thing is,
So-
every situation is different as
Yeah,
well.
you got
And
it.
there's never really two situations that are the same. And, you know, half the lake likes me and half the lake hates me. And that's the hard thing. But I look at it,
Well,
it's a win for me. There, you know,
Not
that
get
that
thrown
I'm
under the
not
bus, that's
searching
what
for
we're talking-
somebody.
right.
And, you know, that we've been a very, very safe lake, you know, in all the years that I've been doing Marine Patrol here. So
Agreed.
I
Not
feel really
disagree.
good about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and that's what I'm trying to, you know, I feel like sometimes, you know, as an officer, you get thrown under the bus, you know, with certain things. And, you know, I don't think that's justified or fair for you.
But that comes with the job,
Right, I understand.
and that's what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And I love this community, I love giving back here. I don't do this for the money. I like everybody here, and I'm really happy that I can be a part of a great community and a great police department.
As far as continuity goes, we discussed this, and we're going to have a department meeting on the 18th of this month. And he and Steve and Dave and I will sit down and just discuss some of those issues that you're talking about. And so, you know, when we write a lot of, we have a lot of stops, we have a lot of contacts, we try to educate people as much as possible. You know, and for as many warnings that we have given, you know, we 41 citations, it might not seem much, but, we're all about the education. But
Mhm.
when we look back at it, we're here, just like all law enforcement officers, to preserve life and property. I mean, when we said there's no drunken disorderly arrest, there's no boating while intoxicated arrest, nobody got killed, no one got, no drowned, no accidents. And so for us, that's a good year, regardless of how many citations that we do issue. Like you said, people will talk themselves into citations. It's not, when you pull them over, it's not our intention to, but, you're going to help yourself out by the way that you react to our officer. So, like you said, it's discretion. I don't want to take that out of their hands.
And a lot of times, these people that are getting these citations are angry because of that, and they are causing problems, and they don't come back after they get a ticket. And, I think in some instances, in most instances, that's a big win. It's a win for the community in the sense of, they'll go to another lake that, isn't going to have an officer there.
Right.
So, I don't know if anybody else has any other questions or comments?
Steve, that relates to a question I had. Do you have a lot of repeat offenders, a lot of regular customers?
Yes, and I think, when I was talking about Officer Juzik before, I know a lot of these people here from being here over the years. And, I have a good rapport with a lot of people, so a lot of people will say, hey, there's something else going on, down in Penny Lake or down towards Benstein. You can't be everywhere at once. And I see a lot of the same people, and some of the same people I pull over multiple times. And I do, I try to give everybody a break, but I do ticket those that are repeat offenders. And I also carry a lot of the booklets with me as well, and I will hand those out that has all the voting laws in the state of Michigan on them as well.
I guess just one thought that I had is, I don't know, I think we might have discussed it at one point, but we didn't really have the need last year because we only had like one weekend of really good ice. But, a couple of years ago, we had a fatality. Snowmobiler went through the ice.
I was here that day.
Yeah, but I was thinking maybe it might not be a bad idea to have Steve come out if it's gonna be if we've got a foot of ice on the lake. And I mean, motorcycles get crazy out there, snowmobiles get
Yep.
crazy. I mean, it
Discussed
might
that
be
as
a
well.
possibility to look at that maybe a couple of weekends in the winter
Yep,
too.
that's definitely a possibility. We discussed that as well.
Okay.
And he doesn't have to go on the ice to do that.
Right.
Great.
Well, a lot of the times they come on and off the ice right at the
Right there,
boat
right.
ramp there.
Yep.
Pick them off right there.
Yeah, and that, during that day, that instant you were talking about, we were trying to get a lot of those people off the ice because it was unsafe. And, we ended up having to have the DNR come out and help us as well. Because as many of you know, there was probably 60, 70 different vehicles
Yep.
racing around out there. As Oakland County Dive Team, we're searching for
Right.
the person.
To recover.
Mhm.
Well, maybe something else that you and the chief and I need to talk about before budget next year is if we're talking about increasing the number of hours that you work or increasing the number of days that we have officers on the lake, having an officer out in the wintertime, maybe we need to think about more than 2 officers. And we had 3 for a short time last year. So-
And my wife still does that and still helps out. She's just been very busy. And, the other thing that's very difficult is we are always looking for, and I've always been looking over the past few years for extra officers. But to get somebody that is trained in marine law or that has gone to the Oakland County Sheriff's Marine Academy, to be able to work weekends, and to get somebody that is going to be in line with what we do, it's very, very difficult. As you know, even hiring regular officers is very hard right now. And we are always looking because, God forbid, if something happened to me and I get hurt or Dave gets hurt, we do need, an extra person. And I know in that case, if that were to happen, my wife would definitely step up to be able to help out as well. She is trained and is an instructor as well, so she's very knowledgeable in that.
I don't want to put Chief Ellsworth on the spot, but before, as he was leaving, we talked about it, and he brought it up, hey, listen, maybe I'll come back and work a couple hours on the boat, you know, and I'm like, hey, we'll be more than happy to have you, chief, so that's a possibility, and I don't know whether he's watching or listening, but.
Debbie might kick him out.
Yes.
And I'm talking to a couple people now, that might be the possibility this winter that we will, touch base on that. But as of right now, there's probably only a few weeks left of the season, so, I think,
Right.
something to look at for next year.
We'd like to see us more in the weekday hours when the weather is just, bake, and it'd be nice to have somebody out there for 2 or 3 hours a night, just driving around, so.
Yeah.
2 or 3 in the afternoon until.
Absolutely.
8.
And that's
so,
easy for me as well,
Sure.
because as you know, I live 5 minutes from here.
Right.
So it's easy for me if, there's something going on, I pop over here all the time.
Mhm.
You're good that way.
Anything else for Mr. Gilmore? Steve, you do a great job.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
all your help.
Thank you.
Appreciate
What you do
it.
for us.
Thank you.
Appreciate having you.
Thanks for the report. Anything else, Chief?
I'm good, sir, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Treasurer Hanson.
Not hardly anything to report. We just finished out our tax year for, to pay without any kind of penalty or interest. And it's been a busy summer for us up in the office, but it's been a good summer. And we are looking forward to some reporting items that are going to be due here in the next bit, and starting to gear up for our audit. And other than that, there's nothing from our department.
Super. Thank you. Mr. Gillum.
Couple updates on a couple items. If anybody's been by Clara Miller at all this week, you'll notice there's snow fencing set up over on the south side of the park. Michigan Recreational Construction, the contractor who's putting the new playground equipment in, was on site bright and early on Monday morning, and they are getting to work. They've already pulled a lot of the play equipment, which we've been storing here at the village. They've got it over on site now, and they're moving ahead. So we'll look forward to that. And then on the tail end, Jason McDonough and I are working to get all the other paperwork that the state needs filled out and completed to keep the project moving too. So
Great.
Continue to watch for good things over there. I have no update on the status of the South Commerce Road culvert replacement. I'm in regular contact with the road commission. I know Larry Gray, the supervisor over in Commerce Township, is checking with them regularly, and he and I are pledged to keep each other in the loop. But again, as far as the road commission is concerned, this is still a date to be determined.
Those roads continuing to sink, so.
That's a someday project, right?
Yes.
Someday it'll get done.
Some 3-day project, yes. So.
I think the ditch enclosure contractor's doing that one.
And speaking of which, just a general comment, as we talked about earlier, we're getting near the end of the road here on both repaving projects for this year and also the ditch enclosure projects. And I just wanted to make a general comment and thank our residents for their patience through both of those projects. I know it can be an inconvenience. I know it can be a pain in the you-know-what, but in the long run, it's going to be worthwhile. We're almost there.
We'll have 2 years off for roads.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, at least 2, yes. So.
Short-term pain, long-term gain.
And then finally, and anybody correct me if they have any different information, because things seem to be on a different track this year. But as far as I know, Lakes Area Youth Assistance is still having their Taste of the Lakes fundraiser next Tuesday, the 17th.
I was gonna
I
ask
heard-
you
I heard
because
November.
It's in
I have
November.
not
We had
seen
November
this
now?
change.
Posted
Yes.
on their
Okay.
Facebook page, and it's out, we pushed, because Edgewood's still having work.
They're under construction,
So
okay.
I think that's why.
It was
So what?
November
18th or
16th or 17th or
Okay.
something like that, yeah.
Still a
Okay.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's not next week.
No.
Apparently it is, no, it is not next week. Because I had wondered, because in the past, Leah has always sent over
Yeah.
a pack of tickets for
Yeah.
us to have available for sale at the village hall. And I haven't heard a word this year about it, so, okay, well, thank you. So the Taste of the Lakes is not next Tuesday, so, but again, it sounds like
Correct.
sometime in November.
It is November, because I ended up donating last spring. I got my tickets for September, and then I got another pack of tickets well, maybe a month ago
Okay.
for November. So
It's
Okay.
November 19th.
November 19th.
I knew it was during
Okay.
right after opening season, gun season, so, yeah, so that week.
Three scares.
And Mark, that's still a Tuesday.
Yes.
And I would assume it's still 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock,
I
but get
believe
there
so.
early if you want to have somewhere to seat.
We might be bringing
So-
snow,
so-
who knows?
Yeah. And that's all I have tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, council comments. Start with Mark. Your meeting.
Big thank you to everybody on the Park and Rec Board and all the volunteers for another corn roast over and done with. I was very happy at about 7 PM on Saturday when it was all done. Weather was a little cool, but other than that, went really well. Great band, great food, great vendors, great kids, everything. Pie eating contest for the first time. It was a little gross, but people seem to enjoy it. Yeah, thank you to all the volunteers and everything. Playground's looking great, so getting started on that. And we have the blood drive coming up next Wednesday, the 18th, from 12 to 4. You can sign up online or over the phone. It'll make a difference.
Is there any possibility for later on down the road, shifting some hours back?
Yeah, we discussed, I talked to Jay today, actually, the diversity rep, and when we were talking, I said, I was thinking, based on the scheduling right now, that we want to change the hours
Yeah.
for the next time we do it.
How late can you get there?
We can do it into the evening, they can potentially even do
No, I mean,
it,
the-
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock on this one, yeah.
It's, like they're leaving at 4, you can go in there 3:35 and.
I think if you went in at 3:45, they could
3:45.
still fit you in, but
Okay.
they're gonna be there from 4 to 5, they're cleaning up.
Okay.
Putting the blood away or something, I don't know how it works, but, yeah.
So, all right, so 4 is kind of the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, originally, the hours were going to be a little bit later, but the problem we were running into, there's a water management board meeting that night, so.
As we're trying to just get it scheduled for the first time and just see what sticks, and so the next time we do it, we'll have a little better, hopefully a better time for the residents and things like that, that'll be more available.
Always take a late lunch. Go get a blood draw and go to Casey's.
There'll be snacks and juice. So-
Snacks and juice. That's a fair trade.
Just a couple quarts, that's all we need. If you got the good stuff, then, you know.
Mr. McNutt.
I don't know, he's a tough act to follow. I'm just excited about all the projects that are getting done. I know, fortunately for everybody, they don't get done fast enough, but they're getting done, so it's really, really nice.
That is. Got enough on the plate right now.
Yeah.
Mr. O'Brien.
I've got nothing for y'all. I just wish you a great and safe month until we meet again.
Okay. Mr. Newman.
Catch you next month, so it's good to see you.
Mr. Duff.
I think I'm gonna echo Mr. O'Brien and Mr. Newman with any comments.
Ms. Kuznicki.
I just wanted to say too, the corn roast was so much fun. It was cold, and I couldn't believe the additional amount of vendors and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it was hopping. I mean, it was, and even as cold as it was, I couldn't believe how many snow cones that we made. It was cold. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. People are nice and friendly, and in fact, I went over to Penny Lick yesterday. I said, I want to buy some of those bratwursts that you sold to the village. They were so good. And they said, they stole them from us. So, yeah, I mean, basically, we got everything except the corn from Penny Lake. So, yeah, I mean, it was
Brought in
good.
business.
The corn was outstanding. Oh, my gosh. Everything was so good. Yeah, it was really good. It was fun.
That's it.
Yeah.
And again, I think Parks and Rec, again, with the corn roast, it was a wonderful day. I couldn't stay all day, but I was sick for quite a few hours. And great turnout, even though the weather was cold.
Do you know, compared to last year, how you did?
Guesstimating, we had a lower turnout. According to talking to the vendors and things like that, they thought there was a little less foot traffic, but they were all happy. They also did well. So we sold a little less corn this year, but we sold more hot dogs. So it's always kind of
So just a little less, you think, maybe because of the weather?
nothing significant, but yeah, between the weather and U of M playing Texas, I think that didn't go well. And I can't imagine. I think,
Some of them probably would rather be.
you know, we expected those post-Michigan game people to show up, but I think they were too depressed after the
Well,
meeting
maybe
to,
that's something you need to do, is add a big screen TV.
We talked about that today. We were not sure about that over the weekend.
Yeah, big
Not sure
screen
if that would
TV.
break any laws, but
Well, at least we
Nobody's
didn't,
checking.
at least we didn't get Grunwall on the pony this year.
Yeah.
I got a picture of that.
I think JR may have one, I don't know.
That's probably.
Okay, with that,
Screen.
motion to adjourn. Motion by Duff, second by Newman. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Good night, everybody.